Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend.
Welcome to the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. We've plenty to digest and talk about today. 2 games in 1 week. Town firstly dispatching QPR with a goal from Elias Kachunga and then a penalty from Steve Mounié.
Mounié comes up right-footed and scores beautifully with a lifted chip wide to the keeper's left. It's 2-0 Huddersfield Town.
Could Town back up a good win on a Saturday with another in midweek for the first time since Valentine's Day 2017? Unfortunately not, as Cardiff City left the Terriers feeling rather bereft. And rather bereft are we for numbers for the podcast today. With Valentine's Day looming, only Simon Coplanders dare venture out to join myself, Matt, in tonight's recording. But before we get into it, let's remember the good times.
Moves in, Jepson's there, Billy's in, the goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town.
Back at Rob Edwards! What a goal for Rob Edwards! Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is! Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Huddersfield got the chance with Clark to knock it through. This could be a chance to equalise! And they have equalised, and you know who scored it, don't you? It's Jordan Rhodes.
He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the flame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Payne's got a chance. Payne scores! Jack Payne scores! But leads it straight to Moy again, who shoots. What a goal, Aaron Moy! An absolute thunderbolt delivered all the way from Australia.
Oh, where's he going to drop? Nicholas in there!
Like Kachunga leaves it. Smith scores for Huddersfield Town. 3-2 Town. 4-3 Town it stands. Forestieri. Danny Ward saves. Danny Ward saves! Town play down the left and Moy stayed onside. Here's Mounié! 2-0 Huddersfield Town on the opening day of the Premier League. De Quattro's in, round De Gea! 2-0 Huddersfield Town! Gets to turn it into the pass. Yes! And Clement scores! Clement has scored one of the most important goals of Huddersfield Town's history. De Quattro's forward, De Quattro's got the better. Yeah! And Laurent De Quattro scores! Laurent De Quattro scores!
Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
This podcast is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Magic Rock Taps, based in Birkby and Holmfirth, 2 tap rooms full of good beers that me and Simon like to frequent when we can. Perfect for match day, pre-match pint. Also, if you're down that way, please bear in mind the blue bins at the entrance where they'll take any food and clothing donations for the Welcome Centre, which is one of the largest food banks in the north of England. So do some very good work there as well. So welcome, Simon, to the podcast. It's just me and you, a nice romantic get-together the day before Valentine's Day. The women will be discussing, talking, going, what's going on there? How are you doing?
Very well, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, very good, very good. No candles in here for anybody that might be listening. It's just a normal spotlight, nothing special. So QPR game, let's get into the QPR game first. Town win. I actually thought we started a bit slowly against QPR. I thought they were the better side first half, not massively. I thought a lot of all fur coat, no knickers, as what you would say, if you like, a lot of nice passing transitions, but nothing too much up front. But you know, it could have been a different game if Jordan Hugill takes his. I hate Jordan Hugill as well. What a shithouse he is. I cannot stand him as a footballer. But enough about him. Elbow in the first few minutes. Thought, here we go, setting his start.
That's a book
again.
in any of the time of the game. In fact, it was in the first few minutes. Kind of meant the referee overlooked it, but yeah, kind of the replays.
Does that every game. He's always targets Schindler and elbows, knees. He's just a filthy clogger. Can't stand him. But anyway, salty about John. It's, you know, it goes back to that Preston game when we went to Preston in the promotion year and they beat us, and he just assaulted Christopher Schindler for 90 minutes, jumping into him, elbows, knees. He was horrible, and I've just not liked him ever since. I thought they started better than us. We, as usual, took a fair while to settle. First goal, killer, really. I think once we got the first goal, great work from Bakuna, inside left, down the line. Harry Toffolo. Allegedly, the referee was going to give a penalty, but played on. I thought that was a bit.
Sure about that.
No, I thought that would have been a bit of a soft one. Chipped it across, lovely ball. This is what we know Harry Toffolo can do. And there's our man Elias Kachunga rolling back the years with a near post run and a good header. After that, only one winner.
Yeah, I agree. With all your kind of thoughts there, Matt. I thought it was a good first half. Kind of some nice interchanges of play at times. You talk about Jordan Hugill, kind of. Not been a particularly pleasant footballer, shall we say?
Shithouse, I said.
Shithouse. Kind of my language isn't as potty as yours. But one kind of lad, I think, on the QPR team who kind of I did take a liking to, and I think kind of quite a few Town fans deep down did as well, was lad Eze kind of who hugged that left touchline first half.
Did say
the week before you called it. I give you that. He said looks a player, doesn't he? And I'll be very surprised if he's at QPR next year.
I'll be honest. The first time I noticed him was the first game of the season. I think he were on loan somewhere last year and didn't really stand out much, but the goal he scored away at Stoke, and it was just the way he slalom through so easily, and it was like a mix between Wilfred Zaha and Paul Gascoigne. Do you know how they kind of control the ball foot to foot and they slalom foot to, Pilkington did it a little bit from time to time at Town at a lower level, but it was just the way he slalom through and then just slotted it in the corner. It was so easy, and I think it was him that chipped that ball over for Hugill, who side-footed it into the side netting. And I think the problem was for us, they were giving him the ball all the time. I think second half we cut them off at the source. I think we pressed higher, and I think Jonathan Hogg and O'Brien played a key role, and they sort of cut the source off to him, and therefore he became more isolated. And I think he kind of lost a bit of interest. I think that might be something he needs to.
I thought kind of QPR kind of consciously moved him inside a bit in the second half. Actually,
I think he just came looking for the ball a bit.
Perhaps, but he was kind of very much in the game in that first half, hugging the kind of left touch line. Clearly had Danny Simpson for pace. So I was quite surprised to see whether it was a conscious decision or not. Kind of second half, he definitely drifted out of the game as did QPR in general, really. But kind of. Johnny Hogg won't look back on it fondly, but the moment where he puts the ball through Johnny Hogg's legs, kind of...
Did two of them, didn't he? Did him and then O'Brien as well.
It was a bit of class, and obviously Johnny Hogg
he got him back second half.
Yeah.
in Jonathan Hogg style with a thunderous challenge, I think, and fair play, Hoggy. You beat him once, you're not going to do that again, are you, with Jonathan Hogg? But to be fair, first half he looked fantastic, but second half for us, someone who I thought was a little bit quiet first half was Emile Smith-Rowe. To me, it looks like he's transitioning from boys' football to men's football, and sometimes physically he's quite tall, he's quite rangy, he's quick, but I think sometimes when he takes a knock, he's not overly happy with it. But I think he's transitioning quite well into the game. I think he's first half I thought he got a few knocks around and bumps and bruises, but second half I thought he came right into it, and when he's got the ball, he uses class, doesn't he? His quality, he's just so good at turning. He'll just turn into the right areas, the good corners, and he just straight away first time pass, bang. He's just such an intelligent footballer, and a kind of footballer I'd love to watch. You give him the ball and he's just out of his feet straight away, and then he's already got the angle. He makes the angle with his first touch for the next ball, and there's not many players you'll see at this level are that good at doing things like that. I think Steve Mounier for me was my man of the match in the game. I thought Mounier was excellent, really, really good, but when you play the ball into Steve Mounier's feet, he knocks it back 5 yards, and then it allows people to recover a bit, and then he sort of plays it out wide, and it's a classic hold-up play. It's all right, but his
touch isn't his strong point, is it, Steve?
No, but you play that into Emile Smith-Rowe, and providing he's not got someone up his backside, ready to clatter him, it's a turn, it's a diagonal turn, and he's in. Do you know what I mean? And Mounier obviously is a different kind of player; he can't do that. But I thought they were both excellent second half, and
I think the real difference
to see him carry on scoring as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think the real difference for Emile Smith-Rowe is he's come from Arsenal, where he's one of a number of very good youth players into a team where suddenly there's a lot of expectation from him. Town have been crying out for a number 10 and kind of a creative player for God knows how long now, kind of certainly the first 6 months of this season, but probably before that as well. And he comes into a Town team now kind of under some real pressure, which he's probably never necessarily experienced before, and with some real expectation and kind of weight on his shoulders. And I guess from what I've seen so far, last night included as well, he's definitely living up to that. And there's a few kind of Town fans on social media, etc., already kind of speculating, will he be available for a full season loan next year?
And him in a shot, wouldn't
you would do. I think kind of there's probably a lot of water to go under the bridge at Arsenal before they'll make that decision. But
absolutely, but
certainly would.
The lad who I sit next to, my mate Tom. I've not mentioned my mate Tom on here for quite a while, but he said after the QPR game, he reckons that Emil Smith Rowe is better than any number 10 we had in the Premier League or in the Championship. It's a big call on such a he's on a small handful of games, but it's difficult. It's an interesting one.
It's comparing him to Casey Palmer,
Izzy Brown, Kachunga did it a bit. Tom Ince. Tommy Smith didn't do it. Tom Ince did, and Pritchard.
I'm not sure I've seen enough yet to make that call. I think Pritchard's definitely lived up. Not lived up to expectations. I think everyone kind of is aligned around that from the people I speak to. I think kind of Casey Palmer kind of set the world alight because probably weren't no expectations of Casey Palmer initially, whereas Emil Smith Rowe actually I think there probably is a little bit given the situation and kind of.
Who did you prefer, Brown or Palmer?
Palmer.
I prefer Brown.
Why?
Hopefully that doesn't get taken in isolation that I've just said. But
Valentine's Day special.
I preferred Izzy Brown because I thought he was more direct. I thought as the higher you go, I thought Casey Palmer's got a lot of talent that could maybe transition to a higher level. His turn, his technique, he's skillful. But I just thought sometimes he was a little bit ahead of everybody else, or he'd try things that would never come off. Whereas Izzy Brown, I thought he was a bit more reliable in his distribution in what he did. I thought he'd run a bit more directly rather than what Palmer did, where he would turn and then look back and cut around. I thought Brown was just a bit more incisive, and I thought his goals and assist ratio was a bit better than Palmer's. But then again, at the end of the season, Palmer wasn't fit, and I think Izzy was a little bit overplayed, and he missed a couple of sitters, didn't he? Sheff Wednesday. And,
I think what's quite interesting is that kind of if you wind back the clock, and you ask both those players where they see themselves in kind of 2 years' time now. I very much doubt that they said on the bench at Bristol City and kind of playing for Luton Town. Kind of their careers haven't probably panned out the way they were expecting, probably nor the way I was expecting.
We're digressing slightly, aren't we?
But we are digressing, yeah. But
I would have both of them back if we couldn't have Emil Smith Rowe or one or the other. I'd be quite happy with that. Jamie Patterson is another one who's got back in that Bristol City team. He was a good number 10 for us, I thought, as well under David Wagner. So we've seen some good number 10s to judge Emil Smith Rowe against. I've just see how I reeled that back in there. So we've seen some good number 10s to judge Smith Rowe against. I think he's up there. I think it's a good one. But I think I agree with you. I think we've got to give him a little bit more time yet because he could sink or he could swim yet. So, but it's a promising start anyway from Emil Smith Rowe. And the question was, would he take it forward into the Cardiff game, which we'll talk about in a minute. But before the Cardiff game, we had some strange news, didn't we? So we've just had a really good January transfer window, and I think when people think director of football, head of football operations, I think the first thing that people think of is transfers. That's the immediate thing, don't you? The guy who does all the transfers. There's a lot more to the role which doesn't get shouted about a lot. So when I was lucky enough to see Stuart Webber and Ross Wilson in action, there's a lot that they do which people don't realise. It's essentially a middle manager, if you like, and you get Josh Marsh is the head of recruitment at Huddersfield. He handles the recruitment team, but David Webb's his manager to an effect, if you like. And he's also head of so he'll oversee the medical department, the academy structure. They'll oversee education, stuff like that. So, which I'm not sure what the education is like at Huddersfield at the minute, but at 16 they used to have them doing sort of BTECs and what have you in the classroom upstairs in the at Canal Side and whatnot. So they used to do like little day releases here and there and whatnot before in the past. So that they do it's a number of different areas that they all knit together. They look after the staff, they support the staff, they support the first team manager. They do all sorts and after a good January transfer window, the last thing that you expected was David Webb's leaving at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean it's a real surprising news. I think kind of took myself and a lot of Huddersfield Town fans who I've spoken to by real surprise. There was obviously kind of a long, kind of arguably drawn out process to get the right man in place. That man was David Webb. We've kind of been without a head of football operations prior to that for quite a long time. So it seemed to depart so quickly kind of does come as a real surprise. I guess we'll come on to speculate the reasons why that may be, but kind of probably thank him first of all for the work he's done kind of at Huddersfield Town in the short time he's been there, and kind of wish him the best for the future, really.
I liked him.
Yeah, people speak really highly of him. I think kind of Phil's comments in the statement suggests there's no ill feeling, perhaps in the way there was when Webber departed. There's none of that. I guess which only kind of led you to believe there's perhaps a conflict of views kind of in how to set the club forward, or
well, his role changed.
His role's changing.
Yeah, to allow Danny Cowley. We saw that we don't. I think it's mostly transfers, wasn't it? Or Danny Cowley would have more of a say than the head of football operations in certain aspects. We don't know exactly what they are, but
I think what's quite interesting is that there's an interview when Huddersfield Town went on their kind of overseas training camp to Dubai. It was the first time that Nicky Cowley was interviewed as part of that, and in that he kind of speaks about his role being a breadth of stuff. Including kind of obviously on the training pitch, etc. But he talks in that interview about kind of his involvement in transfers and how that's something he's done previously at Lincoln and such, and how he would see himself doing that here as well, and kind of does make you think that perhaps kind of the involvement that Danny and Nicky both wanted kind of almost left David a little bit redundant, for want of a better word.
Speculation, isn't it? But you just kind of think, you try and put two and two together, essentially, don't you? But from Mark Devlin did an interview with Jamie Rayner on Radio Leeds. I like Jamie Rayner. I think he's good on Radio Leeds.
Agreed.
Yeah, he's. They did an interview, and Mark Devlin didn't give a lot away, but I think what I took from it was that it was a club decision, not a David Webb decision. There's a few people on social media who are going, "Oh, the club aren't ambitious enough, so therefore David Webb's leaving." Doesn't seem to be the case at all. So we'll nip that one in the bud. From what we gather from Mark Devlin. It's very much the club decision, not a David Webb decision. But the ins and outs are not clear. I'm sure they'll come out at the end of the season or whatnot. But I think what's good to see is that David Webb's doing a handover to the end of the season, so it can't be too much of a bad blood there, if you like.
There's no animosity by the sounds of it. And kind of David Webb's quite active on Twitter, isn't he? And he's kind of liking certain posts and sharing certain things.
Yeah, so it
kind of suggests
there's
not a falling out there.
Yeah, so it's good to see David Webb's a good professional approach. He's staying on, and he's going to help the transition to our new one, which
just on David Webb. So you'd imagine then that kind of there'll be a lot of clubs who'll be interested in his services kind of come the summer. There's there'll be a number of people interested in head of football operations roles who've kind of got scouting backgrounds, who've got coaching backgrounds, but I think kind of the actual number of people who've done that sort of specific role previously is quite limited. And with kind of David Webb's success he's had with ourselves, obviously over in Sweden, I think it was previously, his background at Spurs and at Palace, I think there'll be quite a few clubs knocking on the door already.
Yeah, so like you say, I think everyone would wish David Webb the best of luck. He's definitely made a difference from what I can see. So, very best of luck. And the new guy coming in is a guy that me and Cozzy know, Lee Bromby. So, if we can't get him on the podcast, me and Cozzy will have had a mare, I think, on that one. So, yeah. So I'm lucky enough to have, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I was a goalkeeper, and now a retired one. But yeah, I was lucky enough to play behind a back four consisting of Lee Bromby once upon a time, and Lee Bromby was an exceptional centre back at sort of youth level, and he got picked up quite late. He was around 16, 17 when he was picked up. He was playing Liversidge first team and Sheffield Wednesday. I think they had some open trials, and a guy who was his centre back partner was at Sheffield Wednesday, took Lee along.
Where do you fit into all this? You were at Sheffield Wednesday.
No, I was.
Were you at Liversidge?
No, I was. Where was I at that point? I was at Howden Clough, but it was school where I played in the back four. So it was at Wycliffe Mount. So I was lucky enough to play behind. I had absolutely nothing to do. I had nothing to do at all, because the other guy Neil played for Sheffield Wednesday, and he took him along. And Sheffield Wednesday ended up keeping Lee and releasing Neil, so that seemed to not work out great for my mate Neil.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, but yeah, so he's a top lad though. He's Neil. But yeah, so I played behind a back four, and it was a really good Wycliffe Mount team. I had nothing to do for about 15 games, literally nothing to do. Yeah, they were good footballers. And Lee really good, and moved from Sheffield Wednesday to, I think he ended up going to Sheffield United, Watford, and Leeds United. So he had a decent playing career. Started his coaching with Leeds United through their academy, and then I think it was when Cellino came in. It might have been slightly before, but they made quite a lot of changes and cuts. I think Lee ended up moving from them to us, and he's been here since about 2014. So
yeah, he's done a few roles for us. I think he originally joined as under-17s coach, if that's right. Kind of then progressed under-18s, sorry. Then kind of progressed to kind of academy manager role, if you like. He did it for an interim period.
Yeah, lead development and things like that first, and yeah, it's good in a way that it shows that if you're talented, you can break through. And I like company. When you look for a job, I'm going slightly out of the box here. But if me and you look for a job, you want to go somewhere where you think you're going to be able to progress and be able to get a better job and go up the chain, if you like. And it's good. I think it's good that Huddersfield Town do allow people to do that, and they don't just say, right, you're coming as an under-18s coach, that's you for life. And they allow people with talent to progress, and it's going to be interesting to see how Lee does that and how his skill set with what he's learned as a player, a coach, an academy manager. So he's going to have the admin side as well there. So he's going to have a number of different skills, and maybe that fits in better with what the Cowleys, they've taken more of a grip on the transfers, if you like, and the recruitment side of things. Danny Cowley's very big on being in control of things like that. So maybe Lee's sort of other side of things complements them a bit better. So, I'm interested to see how that unfolds, and definitely wish my old schoolmate the best of luck there. And if he doesn't come on the podcast, and Cozzy knows him, Cozzy knows him even more than me. He knows the family quite well, and they're a nice family of the Brombies as well. So Cozzy will be champing at the bit as well, trying to get some info, what have you. But it'll probably fall on deaf ears. But
it definitely feels like a logical appointment. Obviously, there was a long period before David Webb kind of was announced, and I think kind of it's in the best interest that we don't go through that complete process again. And at the time of kind of David Webb's appointment, I think there was a statement from Phil Hodgkinson which said there'd been internal and external applicants. So I think kind of maybe not, I don't know, Lee Bromley, who was named into the hat at that time, was perhaps a close second to David Webb, and kind of this kind of plan now kind of just lends itself to what we've got kind of at the club. So kind of very much agree, Matt. I kind of wish Lee Bromley the best of luck. I think he's done an exceptional job with the academy. Kind of seen the players starting to come through there now. It's obviously been a difficult time and a very kind of very big transition from what kind of the academy we had previously to what we've got now. I hope to some extent he'll still kind of oversee that as part of his current role, and perhaps by not being involved in transfers as much as what David Webb may have been, that'll free him up some time to kind of keep the academy kind of progressing the way it is. But yeah, kind of interesting news coming out of the club this week. Certainly wasn't expected, but good to see kind of the succession plans in place, and wish both of them the best of success in the future.
There's a red light beeping on here, Simon. I think before we get into the Cardiff game, I think what we'll do is we'll just check the mailbox.
We're sorry, your call cannot be taken and dialed.
No one is available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
Where do you start with that match?
Was so disappointed.
I enjoyed the pie. That pie was really nice.
I actually think the performance was that bad.
So let's just look forward to the next game.
On the way back from the Terriers taking on Cardiff City, where do you start with that match? First 30 minutes playing some really, really nice football, linking up, find all the new signings coming in, really playing well. Then 2 goals for Cardiff, almost kills the game off. Bang bang, you've got the first one, knife through butter, just cuts through us. Second one, Kachunga not getting there from post, poor marking, going for half time. Weird patchy start to the second half, and then we got a bit of passage of play, to be fair. And then after that, Cardiff go score, game dies, urgency goes, becomes a training session, fans are leaving. You've got to move on from that and on to Derby.
Hi, this is Claire Hill. I finally thawed out and just reflecting on last night's defeat against Cardiff. I thought we started off with real good intensity. There was quite good pace. I thought the overlapping of some of the players, especially on the left side, was really good. And then we let that first goal in, which was just... it was so disappointing, and I think that just set in what the rest of the game is going to be like. You just got that feel. I never thought we were going to score throughout the whole game. I thought Cardiff played really well in defensively. We just couldn't break their defence down. But we've seen that before. We've been here before where we've sat and we've watched Town play quite good looking football at times, but then we just can't create anything, and then we're not creative enough to be able to find those spaces and get behind their defensive block. So credit to Cardiff, they grabbed the 3 points. On a positive, I thought Emile Smith-Rowe was absolutely fantastic. He's going to be such a great player. It's going to be really exciting to watch, and it's going to be quite lucky that we've had him at our club, I think, because he's going to go on to great things. Anyway, we have to keep our chins up really, and I think go again against Wayne Rooney's Derby County on Saturday.
Stephen John from Malaysia. Well, the best way to sums up tonight's game is that we started off on a brighter note. We were making an attempt to score first, but eventually got undone by costly mistake. 2 back-to-back goals, I think, put us in a very difficult position to come back into this game. And I think, the script was already written on the wall. Still a lot more to be done. So let's just look forward to the next game against Derby. That's it.
Hi, this is Graham Rayner from Dewsbury, part-time comedian, full-time Town fan. Watched a humiliating 3-0 home defeat to Cardiff. What were my highlights? I enjoyed the pie. My pie was really nice. I also enjoyed the referee rewriting the rule book, just because Fraser Campbell was annoying Alex Smithies. That was interesting. Worrying things are our build-up play down the right was only the only thing slower were the contactless payments at the bar that were meant to speed things up. And to be honest, between Kachunga and Danny Simpson, they're playing like such a pair of old ladies that if they're playing like that on Saturday, Wayne Rooney's going to have a hell of a time. We know what he's like with old ladies. My biggest fear at the moment is our inability to string together 2 good performances is only really rivalled by Nicolas Cage's film career for the last 20 years. So all in all, pretty depressing. Cheers.
Hey, it's Ian Kilroy in Brisbane. Danny Cowley doesn't get outthought too often, but he did tonight. Cardiff came with the perfect game plan. Harris really did win that battle. They were solid at the back. They showed us that why when we went forward, forcing us to rely on our fullbacks being the main point of attack. Then when that failed, they broke forward with pace and numbers, taking advantage of the space left behind. Even at 2-0 down, we remained one-dimensional, and we just never looked like scoring. The result was awful, but I didn't actually think the performance was that bad. More just a bad day at the office against a well-drilled 4 points off the playoff team in Cardiff. Ultimately, we started well enough, but when a team in our situation finds themselves 2-0 down, it really is game over. Clubs at the bottom of the league always lack resilience. I think we'll survive easily enough. I don't think that's a worry. But the summer is going to be massive, and it's going to be massive for Phil Hodgkinson's era at Town.
Hi, it's Brady Frost, or Brady0894 on Twitter. Last night's game, Town were just architects for their own downfall. Too much space for the first goal. Asleep on Cardiff's corner routine for the second. It was a good set piece, but third goal was just comical for me. Deflection creates space for Tomlin. He shoots, Loss blocks it, and Patterson has a tap in. Just carved open far too easily. We had plenty of possession, but didn't do anything positive with it. Ref didn't have control of the game. Just frustrated us more. He was too soft for me, too indecisive for both sides. Bacuna stood out, so did Smith-Rowe, but, Danny Cowley's called the performance powder puff, and I think that says everything you need to know. I just hope it's a blip rather than something more serious. Cheers. Bye.
Hi, it's Cozzy, Huddersfield Town local media whore. Summed up the season last night, 1 step forward, 2 back from QPR. Similar scenario, really, in that 2 quick goals killed us last night. It killed QPR on Saturday. I thought we started the game, pretty well. Smith-Rowe to the fore as ever, looked really good, but disappointment for the first goal. Toffolo, poor, Simpson didn't help, and then all of a sudden, Kachunga sleeping from the corner, great set piece, they'll say, and we're 2-0 down. I thought we kept going. We should, in my opinion, have had a penalty second half for the handball. Maybe we come back after that, but with 30 minutes to go, we don't get it. They score another fortuitous goal. But really, the game peters out. I don't think we have enough threat, and we know it. Smith-Rowe's only a kid. Bacuna inconsistent with nothing else really, no wingers or anything, and until that changes in the summer, I'm afraid it is going to carry on to be a struggle, and Luton's result didn't help, so just hope we can stay in the division, and I think we will, but there's a lot of work to do for the new Director of Football, Lee Bromby.
Please hang up.
Right, so thank you very much to the guys, some of our podcast listeners. So that's Luca was the first one, Claire Hill, Sivan John over in Malaysia. We've got Ian Kilroy Silk. I'm calling him Ian Kilroy Silk. It's not his surname, but he can have it. Down in Brisbane, Australia. Brady Frost, one of our writers. Keep an eye on the website because he keeps churning out some good stuff online, and Graham Rayner as well there. And finished off by the man who can't be with us tonight because he's not running scared to his missus, but he's having to work, unfortunately. Is Richard Kosmala. So I thought Cosy kind of nailed a lot of points really against the Cardiff game. Kind of almost made what me and you say redundant in many ways.
Yeah, but he's have a job.
Yeah. So Cardiff, I think the main frustrating thing for me about Cardiff was we started okay. We usually start rubbish, don't we, and finish strong. But it was the other way around seemingly this time, where we started okay. We little flashes, Juninho Bacuna, a couple of little flashes here and there. Man of the match, I'm not sure, but I don't really think anybody played particularly well. But by the same token, I wouldn't say anybody had an individual stinker either by any means. I just think there's quite a lot there that were just a bit under par, and I think it was just one of those games for me.
I agree. I was looking forward to last night, kind of off the back of Saturday. I thought we'd turn the corner, signs of a team building. Kind of got the early train back from King's Cross, kind of slept into Wakefield Kirkgate, kind of beat all the traffic to the ground to get there in time. And we did start quite positive with some nice interchanges of play. You kind of saw that kind of structure that kind of the Cowleys kind of wanted to bring and put on the grass. But kind of once that first goal went in, kind of quite quickly kind of felt it just wasn't going to be our night. Kind of just kind of sensed that was the first opening they had, very clinical finish from them. Quite quickly then they get the second from the corner. Kachunga loses his man. A very, very good finish, and suddenly 2-0 down at half time, and it's very, very difficult to come back from there. You kind of knew at that point Cardiff would slow the game down in the second half as best they could. Kind of very good at that, as frustrating as it is to watch. And then kind of when they got the third, it kind of just...
It's a lucky third, wasn't it?
It's a lucky third, and then kind of everything kind of just evaporates. Any kind of meaningfulness to the game.
I thought 3-0 was a bit harsh in terms of a scoreline, in terms of balance. I thought Cardiff deserved the win, no doubts. I thought they were very, very well disciplined, well organised. The structure was good. They the shape that they held, it was like a 4-2-3, or more of a 4-4-1-1 shape that they had. They got back two banks, sort of behind 9-10 men behind the ball, and they sat deep and made it difficult. And if you sit deep and give us the ball, we tend to look a little bit clueless with it, because I think at the minute it's obvious we lack natural width. So it was good to see Willett come on. I thought he put one good ball in, actually. Interesting to see how he'll do moving forward. But with Bacuna on the left, he's always going to come in field, which allowed Toffolo a little bit of space, but they tracked Toffolo really well so that he couldn't really be as effective as what he was against QPR.
I just thought we were a bit one-dimensional at times, and it's partly a reflection of the players we've got at the moment, but you saw kind of Lewis O'Brien drop into that pocket, kind of left-back pocket at times as we were restarting play.
Chalobah does, doesn't it, for the other
A little bit, and that allowed obviously Toffolo to push kind of higher up the pitch, and then kind of provided that outlet and kind of that overlap, if you like, to put across into the box from time to time. But I guess kind of conversely on the right-hand side, there was none of that. Kind of Simpson was offering nothing to very little.
He can't do it anymore.
He can't get up there, and then that kind of then means that Kachunga's faced with two men in front of him. He's got no kind of one overlapping to pull one of the defenders away to create some space, and
he's not got the speed or the skill
ability.
set
Dare I say it? Yeah, so I think kind of Kachunga's hamstrung a little bit by the fact he hasn't got an overlapping right back in the same way Tommy Smith used to do. But at the same time, kind of you just need a bit more quality in that final third, really, to kind of pick out Steve Mounier. He's not.
I think it's as simple as that. I think he did the job really well under David Wagner, because he had Tommy Smith playing as a winger, if you like, and it just allowed him to drift in and do what he does best, which is what he did against QPR. Try and find space in the box for crosses coming in, and we've not really had anyone who could cross the ball all season either. So it's not a team made for him at the minute. I think the team structure and dynamic and the way we play has probably made him look worse than he probably is at times. He's worked hard, but he's going to be one-on-one versus somebody, and he's not a player you want one-on-one taking people on. He just can't. It's just not his game. He's not a winger. He's not a skillful player. He's one that kind of sneaks in and out of the box, and it's the classic sort of German phrase, the Raumdatter, the space investigator. He translates space investigator. That's what he does, But
I thought the other thing that kind of perhaps hamstrung us a little bit last night as well was kind of the midfield tour of Hogg and O'Brien. I think that's an ideal combination when you kind of 1-2 up and potentially trying to see out a game. But they're both very similar in kind of stature for one, and perhaps like the type of player that they are as well. They're good at breaking up play, they're good at recycling possession, they're good at covering the ground, but kind of I just worry that one of them is not going to find that kind of killer pass that kind of breaks, that kind of splits the centre halves and kind of allows someone to run through. One of them's not going to run beyond the striker. Like I say, I think it's fine in certain situations when you're seeing out games or you're going away from home and you're wanting to kind of arguably play for the draw. But I think in a game last night, it kind of showed in those first 20 minutes, we just needed one of them to be able to pick a pass, and sadly, it kind of didn't.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? That we've got if teams drop deep against us and we have to play in front of them, then we've not really got that Aaron Moy, Adam Clayton, Jacob Butterfield kind of playmaker who can find angles, go find angles. We've got two good players in there, but they're not real sort of. They're not players who can kind of drive in an angle and then create space. Our man to do that's Emile Smith-Rowe, but because they've got their double pivot deep, if you like, so they've got like as Claire said on thing, a bit of a deep block going on. If they've got that double pivot, then Emile Smith-Rowe's got no space centrally to kind of come and do that. And then obviously there's not a lot ahead of him either. Mounier doesn't offer much movement into the channels. He offers you a good outlet, but not much movement into the channels. And Sean Morrison and the other centre back just kind of swallowed him up a bit. And
it's quite easy for them last night against Steve Mounier. I think kind of what I would have perhaps liked to have seen, and I've sat on this podcast previously and kind of questioned why we brought Andy King into the club and kind of said it was a bit of a meh signing at the time. But actually I was really
good against QPR.
Yeah, so I mean, came on against QPR, looked really good, had a kind of a shot saved by their keeper. And I guess kind of he is slightly different mould to kind of O'Brien and Hogg in that midfield too. And is arguably going to perhaps push on a little bit. He's maybe going to kind of try and play a couple more ambitious passes, and obviously had that opportunity or kind of chance, if you like, yesterday evening where kind of he had the shot and QPR pretty much saved it. Cardiff lad saved it.
Is that a penalty? Danny Cowley was hopping a little bit, frothing. Cozzy.
I think it is for me. I think it is for me.
I'm a bit unsure. I'd like to say yes because I'm biased. I'm a Huddersfield fan. I'm obviously very biased. I thought he moved his arm slightly out, not blatantly, not intentionally.
You've seen them given, but you've seen less of a handball given as well.
With the current rule at the minute, I think if players keep their arms down by the side and it hits their arm, it's not a penalty under the current rules. Which it just seems a bit daft if that ball's going to it's going into goal, and it's going into the corner, and it hits his hand.
I just think the ball's travelled quite a far distance relative to some that you see. I think there was one kind of mentioned in the first half actually, which the ball just kind of struck him, kind of bounced up from nowhere. So that's not a penalty. But that one in the second half I thought was a really good shout, and actually we get a penalty at that point, and potentially then we can kind of go on and maybe get something from the game.
I would have still lost it.
I think you're probably right.
I just sat there.
It is quite a pinnacle moment, and I think kind of when that wasn't given, I think in the cowshed near me there was a big sigh and a bit of a this isn't going to be our night. Let's write this one off.
Yeah, creatively I think to be fair, I think you got to say Cardiff came and did a job. They were bigger than us. I was looking at one point, I was thinking their back four's huge. The two in front of the back four were big as well, all 6 footers, and you're thinking they're a big side, and they've swallowed us up a little bit. Danny Cowley said afterwards we were bullied. I didn't think we were bullied. I just thought they were just stronger, more aggressive, in certain areas. Whereas I thought our Achilles heel really was when we did get people pushed on. Danny Simpson tried to push on a little bit, and Toffolo pushed on. We lost the ball in silly areas, and that allowed them to then counter us while we had men committed forward. And I think there were several times Cardiff ran through the middle, and I suppose that's a consequence of O'Brien going into that false fullback position for Harry Toffolo, is that you can get overloaded a bit through the middle if someone then gives it away and it comes through that sort of inside sort of left. And I think we need to use the ball better, and I think at times like that it does stick out that we maybe don't have that playmaker in midfield, and but I think you're right. I think if they don't sit deep and it's an open game, it's fine. Hogg and Lewis O'Brien can carry the ball really nicely into space, and I think you got to give O'Brien a bit of credit for this defensive role. We had a really bad moment where Danny Simpson's header goes nowhere, and then Harry Toffolo kind of slices one into the far corner, and Lee Tomlin's through on goal, and O'Brien must make 15 yards back. Cozzy as well pointed out on WhatsApp, it makes about 15 yards, and it's a tremendous bit of defending by Lewis O'Brien, and I think he was one of our better ones last night. I couldn't pick a man of the match. I thought Bacuna, I can see why they gave it Bacuna, because he looked like he was going to do something, a few little skills, a lot of it didn't come off.
It's a bit one-dimensional when you play in that left wing row, Bacuna, and I'm not sure it's his fault. We've spoke previously about how he's been kind of been given a number of positions at various different times to play. He has to play 2 different positions last night. It's kind of been the great example, but he's never going to kind of cut to the line there and stand up a ball to the back post with his left foot. He's always going to come to look inside. And I think the more and more he plays in that positions, the more and more kind of opposition clubs will realise that and simply show him the line. He's not a player for that position in the long term for me.
Well, we said 2 weeks ago, we still don't know what his long-term position is. I think it's probably an 8, but if you put him in a 2, then his discipline needs to improve. But in a 3, it's probably a midfield 3 of an 8 as an 8. Getting forward's probably his best, but anyway, we've done that. Jonas Lössl came back. I thought his distribution's been excellent.
Distribution's been superb. There was one last night, wasn't there, where he almost picks out Lewis O'Brien with kind of a side foot kind of kick that maybe gets kind of 2-3 foot above the ground. Just kind of a bit too strong for him. But
he hit one. He had like 2 people coming up from either side, and then he hit one with the outside of his right foot, and he curved it round 2 players straight to the feet of Steve Mounier. And for a minute, it's like, did he miss it that, or was that just amazingly good? And
there's a couple of bits against QPR as well. He kind of claims 2 corners, doesn't he? In a sense,
Harry threw one through the middle, didn't he?
I think kind of Harry Toffler then gets pulled back by Hugo, was it? Perhaps who then gets into the book. I think kind of shit house. I think the real kind of compliment you can give Lössl off the back of the QPR game was that he made it look very easy. Yes, he didn't have much to do, but what he did do looks kind of took to like a duck to water.
He looked like an adult playing with like a lot of under-15s sometimes.
Yeah,
just out, do you know, and the kind of, I'll just go in goal and hang back, and it's just like, it comes out, collect stuff. And he just made stuff look really easy.
And he got a great reception as well, didn't he? Kind of both games, actually. I think kind of by and large, kind of the fans are really pleased to see him back. Recognise he's kind of a really good goalkeeper for this level, and I think kind of will certainly help her in our quest to stay in this division as we
couldn't really do anything with the goals, could he? Yesterday,
no, I don't think so.
A mate of mine thought he rushed out too early at Josh Murphy, but Josh Murphy had all week to walk that in, didn't he? There was no one near him. He even could slow it down, to try and flick it over. And once that happens, there's no chance.
Yeah,
second goal, great finish. It comes through a crowd.
As well to see the second one, even
third one, he makes a save, and it just falls luckily for the guy to tap it in. It's just one of those nights, isn't it? So again, I still think he's a fantastic signing for this league. Chances of him long term, God knows, but great goalkeeper for this level. We've got Derby on the horizon on Saturday. They seem to have picked up to me a little bit, Derby. I think they lost to Bristol City, didn't they, last night? We're at 3-2. I think they were 3-0 down though and came back to 3-2, which shows they've still got a bit of something about them, or Wayne Rooney's Derby County, as they've now been rebranded as, thanks to is it Red 32, the sponsor there, that are paying for a lot of something, what it does in the, I don't know, something or other going on. So we're going there. It's going to be a tough game. Tickets are pretty expensive, over 30 quid out there to go. Pritchard and Grant maybe back in contention, which would be interesting. I think it'd be interesting to see Pritchard respond to Emil Smith-Rowe coming in, and I did we did an article for the Examiner to try and work out the best Huddersfield Town 11 after the transfer window. And one thing I toyed with was perhaps moving Smith-Rowe to the right-hand side to accommodate Pritchard at 10, or Pritchard wide and Smith-Rowe at 10. Do you reckon you could put them both in the same side, or is it kind of?
I think you definitely could. I think, presuming the assumption there is that Grant will play from the left. Then is that right?
If he's fit, yeah.
I think you would do. I think Emil Smith-Rowe predominantly has played in 10 for most of his career, and when 10, he hasn't, he's come off the left-hand side. But I think he's a talented enough boy to kind of play off the right-hand side if that's what he wants him to do. And quite clearly last night, kind of that feels like kind of one of the positions where we need a bit of new ideas and a bit of a change. The only thing I would say is obviously we're going to go to Derby, and it'd be interesting to see how Cowley chooses to set up. He might kind of want arguably a more solid defensive shape, kind of taking a point almost. And in that kind of scenario, I'd imagine Kachunga gets a nod again. But we'll see. Yeah, it'd be a difficult game against Derby. You're right, they definitely have improved almost since Rooney's come in.
Yeah, Chris Martin's picked it up.
Yeah. Dwayne Holmes is doing quite well there.
I'm pleased with that. I've always liked Dwayne. Good guy as well. So I'm pleased Dwayne Holmes doing well. So Derby, the good side. It'd be difficult. It'd be a difficult one. I'm not going to do any predictions this time because I thought we'd struggle against QPR and beat Cardiff. So you don't listen to me.
I said 6 points from 2. We got 3, didn't we? But
yeah, I thought 4, but draw against.
We're a long way off last night.
Because he called it right. So he'll be sat there, flicking his V's at us, going, "I called that right," So, but he said 3 points would be good. So 3 points overall. We're still 5 off of relegation.
Yeah, Luton winning last night didn't help at all, did it?
No, but they're 8, aren't they, behind? We've got there's quite a few people sort of. I think it's healthy to look over our shoulder and make sure we don't sort of take anything for granted. We've got 2 tough away games coming up. Derby and Swansea, I think, are the next 2 away games. It potentially, they're good sides. We could potentially lose both. It's the Championship. We could potentially win both, but we could potentially lose both, and therefore the bottom 3 starts to creep a bit closer. But we do have a lot of games at home coming up. We've got Wigan at home. We've got Luton at home. We've got
quite quickly after that, we've got Charlton at home as well, who we play. Yeah. So I think kind of Charlton, Wigan, like you said, those games at home.
These are the games that are going to matter, aren't they?
Us.
Yeah. 3 wins. Do you think? I think how many do we need? We've got. Cowley keeps saying 50 points, and apart from Peterborough that year, I don't think anyone's been relegated with 50 points for quite a while. So
we're on 35 at the moment. So 15. So 5 wins.
5 wins. Well, probably say 3 wins and a couple of draws. Well, 4 wins, maybe a couple of draws, and you're looking at your Wigans at home. They're going to be scrapping. They're actually arguably more difficult games. Usually at the end of the season, it's easier to play teams mentally on the beach who are in mid-table with nothing to play for, and your Wigans, Lutons, Charltons at home, they're your difficult ones because they all of a sudden turn the form table upside down.
Yeah, it's a shame we haven't got Blackburn and Hull still to play, kind of clubs like that, really, isn't it?
Have picked up as well.
It's a funny old league. It's a very competitive league. I'm not sure it's necessarily the best championship.
I think it's rubbish.
Ever been. Yeah, the standards really poor, which takes you back to the argument.
I think at the top end, it's probably the weakest we've been for a while. But at the bottom end, there are no Boltons. There are no sort of really Barnsley are not that bad. I think in a couple of different seasons they could have stayed up with what they've got. But it's an interesting league. I think in terms of not knowing what's going on, it's a very interesting, very good league. But in terms of quality, sort of top end, I think it's diluted a bit. I think West Brom are a good side, but the rest, it's 3 points between 2nd and 7th or something ridiculous. It's all of a sudden got really interesting there, and it's got getting more interesting at the bottom, which is not what we want. But I think it could really flip over the next couple of weeks. Hull City, you look at, are on 40 points, and they're in revolting form. Hull City, they've probably got a couple of points too many to sort of get fully drawn in, but you never know. This is a championship. You get to 50 points. You never know.
I'd like Hull to get sucked in. I feel like they kind of almost deserve it. The owners there, they've kind of sold the best players from underneath Grant McCann's feet, and kind of some of the stuff kind of they've done historically has kind of alienated the fans, etc. I feel like they deserve it.
If it carries on into next season, you put a $5 on them to go down, don't you? Now they've not got Jared Bowen and Grzycki and Marcus Maddison. But, it depends on what happens to the money.
He's on loan, isn't he, I think?
Yeah, I don't think they could agree on it. From listening to Darren McAntony talk, I think Marcus Maddison had delusions of grandeur about being able to get a lot of money, so I think they've had to take him on loan. And it wouldn't surprise me if he tendered himself out to the highest bidder for the summer. And, football's a short career, so you can kind of say fair enough in some respects. So I said I wasn't going to do any predictions, Simon, but here I am.
Can't help yourself,
Derby,
Matthew.
No, I feel like I'm going to use it against you next week. So, what do you fancy? Do you reckon we can get something at Derby? We can get something, but will we get something?
Yeah, I'd be content with a point. I think I'm going to call 1-1. Steve Mounier to continue his good streak at the moment with a headed goal from a corner, something like that. But I think I think Daniel Cowley will almost set up to take that in truth, and then kind of look to those kind of games we've got. Games we've mentioned at home in the not too distant future as the ones we really need to win. What about yourself? Nail your colours to the mast.
I think we'll lose. I don't like saying that, but I just think if we sit I think if we sit deep, I think they've got players like Rooney and Holmes who can pick you off a little bit. So I don't think sitting deep's necessarily the best thing. I think you have to go at them a little bit more, and whether we've got and we just it's the quality out wide which I'm struggling with. I think if we score first, I think we get something. Or we should, as long as it's not in the first minute. But I think if we score first, and I think we've got enough about us to hold firm and get something. But I think it's a case of who scores first. I think if Derby scores first, they win the game. If we score first, we can get something. So, but I think if Derby score first, this is where we come back next week and Derby go 1-0 up and we win 2-1. But I think if it's a tough one, I'd be very happy with a draw, leaning slightly towards a 2-1 to Derby maybe, but I'd be delighted with a draw, and I think we can definitely get it. So,
fingers crossed.
Yeah, so thanks again to our sponsors, Magic Rock. Thanks to our guys for sending in their thoughts on the Cardiff game. If you fancy getting involved with that, just drop our Twitter account a direct message. We're always looking to get people involved as and where we can, but obviously we can only have a handful at one time. But yeah, thanks again. Hopefully we we're back next week celebrating a victory from Pride Park and or the FFP Arena, whatever they call it these days. So have a great week, and here's to everybody. Have a happy Valentine's Day.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.